It's a class system, man. It's CBI, Stevie Boy.
Disturbing Behavior is a 1998 film directed by David Nutter and written by Scott Rosenberg. Nutter is best known for directing episodes of Game of Thrones and a number of CW pilots, including Arrow, Supernatural, and The Flash. Rosenberg wrote Con Air and Gone in 60 Seconds, which should tell you everything you need to know. Disturbing Behavior is a teen sci-fi horror about parental pressure, cliques, and a little bit of grief. It has a star-studded cast including James Marsden, Katie Holmes, Nick Stahl, and Ginger. It's a messy film at the best of times, with good performances and some interesting ideas, but lackluster pacing, odd character decisions, and a sudden ending. Much of this can be explained by the extensive cuts that occurred after unsuccessful test screenings. The final runtime is only 84 minutes, which even for horror is on the shorter end. The deleted scenes can be found in most physical media releases and account for almost 20 minutes, including the alternate ending, which is much more satisfying than the final release. While not all of those add to the film, they add additional context and help contribute to both the greater themes and the motivations of the characters, and it's really unfortunate they were cut. According to Nutter, he was close to getting a director's cut made, but MGM ultimately axed it. Unfortunately, the film was fairly lambasted by critics, earning 33% on Rotten Tomatoes and only $17.5 million on a $15 million budget, breaking even, but that doesn't account for advertising costs, meaning it was somewhat of a flop. Despite this, it earned a small cult status, and there have been efforts to finally get a director's cut made and released. Given it's been 20 years, this seems unlikely, but anything is possible. The basic premise of the film is Steve, whose name I couldn't remember at all, and his family have moved to an isolated island about a year after his brother committed suicide. He falls in with a stoner crowd at his new high school, but discovers an apparent conspiracy with the jocks of the school, who are called Blue Ribbons. They're seemingly perfect, do community service, achieve high grades, and organize school events, but also occasionally erupt into violent fits. One of the largest problems with the film is the story structure. Ideas are presented, then dropped immediately after. Chekhov's guns are everywhere, but never fired, in one case literally. Part of this might be the edit, but even putting in the deleted scenes, it still feels like the script was written in parts, then cobbled together. One of the most memorable scenes is in the school cafeteria. Steve finds himself alone eating lunch, but Gavin and UV come in and join him, introducing him to the various cliques of the school. This includes motorheads, nerds, skaters, deadbeats, and the already mentioned Blue Ribbons. While it's kind of a beautiful time capsule of the 90s, the only groups that matter are the villains of the film, the Ribbons. The others never enter into it. It seems like there's an obvious storyline about uniting the other groups to face up to the souped-up jocks, while discovering their terrible secrets, but instead it's just this single scene. There's also the most confusing sequence in the film. After discovering that their counselor used to work at a mental hospital just across the bay, Steve and Rachel go there. Their journey is instant, and they start walking around the halls without any difficulty. It seems like a standard abandoned hospital. Then there's a jump scare with a patient. It's then revealed this is a fully staffed facility, with nurses and security and everything, which really begs the question, how did they get in? They also later escape with no difficulty, when one of the primary goals of that kind of institution is to keep people in. They also learn basically nothing that couldn't have been gotten from a file, rendering the whole thing pointless. The film is also one of the most pre-Columbine films ever made. Loners with trench coats with a nihilistic approach to school and society, but nothing's made of it. Then there's the scene where Gavin confidently declares he'd rather die than become one of the Blue Ribbons, literally pulling out a pistol and threatening to kill his parents. Yeah, 1 year later, that shit isn't flying. There's no mention where he got the gun from, and when Teddy takes it from him, it's never used. In the alternate ending, for whatever reason, UV ends up with it and saves the day, but there's definitely a scene missing there. The inciting incident involves Gavin witnessing a double murder, as one of the jocks gets horny, kills his girlfriend, then the cop that discovers them. This is never followed up on, with everyone declaring his theories crazy, but he literally saw it, and it's a small island. A cop and a popular teen just disappearing is going to be huge news. It doesn't make sense for it to stay in the realm of speculation. Let's talk about the twist, or the explanation of the weirdness. It turns out the local guidance counselor is also a scientist, or something, and has been implanting chips into the local teen population. This causes them to behave, not drinking or having sex, but when they get horny, the dissonance results in sudden violence. There's definitely something there thematically, but it never quite reaches having an actual message. They also say this is a result of the pineal gland, which always makes me think of From Beyond, which is a different kind of freakiness. The motivation for this is expanded on in the alternate scenes, which is kind of crucial. It turns out that a few years before the events of the film, some teens got drunk, and there was a huge car crash, killing 6 people. In a small town, this is going to make waves. After that, they recruited Dr. Calicut to make sure something like that never happened again. He also has his personal motivation revealed in another deleted scene, which adds context to the scenes in the mental institution. I cannot stress enough how much the film was hurt by the edits. Basically, he desires perfection because when his daughter was born, he saw her as an ideal, but as she grew up there were flaws, and like all teenagers, she acted out. He tried to stamp that out though, not through decent parenting, but shutting it down completely. It didn't work and turned her crazy, but now he's out to prove that it can work, to create a utopia to justify what he's lost. It's not the most unique motivation, but it's something. There's also another reading of the film that might seem like a bit of a stretch, but bear with me. That's looking at it through a queer perspective, specifically Gavin and Steve. Early on, Gavin mentions masturbatory fantasies of one of the blue ribbons, but otherwise makes no effort towards actual romance. Similarly, Steve has a slow-motion first impression of Rachel, and later kisses her, although it's only really reciprocal in the theatrical ending. Steve also declines explicit offers of sex from one of the possessed teens later in the film, not because she's compromised, but because she's a blue ribbon. He also seems overly concerned about Gavin after knowing him seemingly less than a week, willing to take a thorough beating just to talk to him. This is despite ignoring the entirety of the island in the finale, opting to run away instead of stay and deal with the problem. In the end, he also refers to Rachel, UV, and his sister as all a family, not his girlfriend or similar. These are all small things, and it's definitely not Scream's Stu and Billy, but it does seem like there is something there. Although in a deleted scene he has sex with Rachel. That still doesn't rule out him being bisexual, however. There's also Gavin's line, "May I have the stance?" which is said to Steve just before they ambush him. Gavin, alas, never gets his stance. The alternate, or should I say original ending, also plays into this. Instead of Gavin escaping and spreading to other schools, he instead confronts the group on the boat, touting a shotgun. Steve talks about how he's changed now, which could be a metaphor for conversion therapy, the need to conform to the typical heteronormative experience. At the end, his eyes flash red, which so far is meant horny, and then he attempts to shoot either Rachel or Steve. He hasn't shown any romantic desire towards Rachel, but something triggered it. Now that's just one perspective, but it's one that I've not seen mentioned in any analysis of the film. Not that anyone is analyzing a Random Nines horror film, but hey, someone has to do it. Disturbing Behavior is ultimately a broken film. It's a time capsule of the 90s with some decent commentary about the pressures of school and conformity, but it was unfortunately destroyed by studio-mandated cuts, resulting in a dull, confusing affair. There's a little bit of life in it, and a few interesting moments, but unfortunately the film was released. It's just not that good. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Let me know if you've seen this film, or if there are other 90s horror films that I should take a look at. Thank you, and be well.